Good evening. What if I told you that the list of rules you know as the 10 Commandments, the ones about murder, theft, and adultery, isn't actually the list the Bible gives that title to? It sounds impossible, but if you look closely at the Hebrew text, there are actually 3 different versions of the Decalogue, and they differ in fascinating ways. In fact, the only list explicitly named the 10 Commandments in the narrative of Exodus doesn't mention "thou shalt not kill" at all. Instead, it focuses on harvest festivals and a strange prohibition against boiling a baby goat in its mother's milk. In this lecture, we're going to shatter the classic Sunday school illusion, walk through Exodus and Deuteronomy line by line, and uncover the ancient political and religious drama that gave us 3 competing versions of the most famous laws in history. It is a privilege to speak with you today on a topic that sits at the very bedrock of Western moral and legal tradition, yet remains one of the most widely misunderstood aspects of biblical literature. When we speak of the 10 Commandments, an image almost immediately forms in our collective imagination. We picture 2 stone tablets etched with Roman numerals I through X, representing a single static list of moral absolutes that has remained unchanged from the moment of its inscription on Mount Sinai to the present day. However, if we are to be serious students of the text, if we are to read the Hebrew Bible with eyes wide open to its complexity and its richness, we must confront a reality that is far more fascinating than the popular version. The reality is that the Bible does not contain one version of the 10 Commandments. It contains 3. These 3 lists, found in Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5, and Exodus 34, are distinct in context, distinct in content, and distinct in theological emphasis. Perhaps most surprisingly, the list that most of us have memorized, the ethical list concerning murder, theft, and adultery, is not the list that the Bible text itself most explicitly identifies as the 10 Commandments. That title, strictly applied within the narrative flow where the phrase appears, belongs to a completely different set of instructions found in Exodus 34, a list that has less to do with ethics and more to do with harvest festivals and boiling goats. Over the next hour, we are going to undertake a close reading of these 3 traditions. We will walk through the familiar terrain of Exodus 20, move to the reimagined homily of Deuteronomy 5, and finally, we will ascend the mountain a second time to examine the strange and ancient ritual decalogue of Exodus 34. We will ask why these differences exist, what they tell us about the history of ancient Israel, and how we should understand the very nature of biblical law. Let us begin where most readers begin, the 20th chapter of the book of Exodus. This is the classic text, the ethical decalogue that has adorned courthouse lawns and catechisms for millennia. The narrative context here is dramatic and terrifying, with the children of Israel encamped at the foot of Mount Sinai amidst smoke and seismic violence. In this atmosphere of overwhelming holiness, God speaks. The content is likely familiar to you. The list begins with a prologue identifying the Lord as the liberator from Egypt, followed logically by the prohibition against other gods and the making of carved images. We then find the command not to carry the Lord's name in vain, followed by the command to remember the Sabbath. In this first version, the rationale for the Sabbath is cosmic. One rests because God rested after creation. The list then transitions to horizontal duties, honoring parents and prohibitions against murder, adultery, theft, false witness, and finally, coveting a neighbor's house, wife, or property. Even within this standard list, traditions differ on how to number them, but the text remains the ethical decalogue. We must then move forward in biblical time to the second list. We leave the foot of Sinai and fast forward 40 years to the plains of Moab. Moses, now an old man, stands before a new generation to deliver a farewell sermon in Deuteronomy chapter 5. At a casual glance, this list looks identical to Exodus 20, but it is actually a remix. The most profound change occurs in the fourth commandment regarding the Sabbath. In Exodus, rest was grounded in creation. Here in Deuteronomy, Moses commands them to keep the Sabbath because they were slaves in Egypt and were redeemed. The Sabbath becomes a social justice institution, a remembrance of liberation rather than just creation. There is also a subtle change in the command against coveting. In Exodus, the wife is listed as part of the house's contents. In Deuteronomy, you shall not desire your neighbor's wife stands alone first, elevating her status before moving to the house and field. These are not errors, they are updates, showing a law that breathes and grows with the people. But now we must turn to the most perplexing and significant problem in this narrative, the problem of the third list. This brings us to the dramatic narrative of the golden calf. According to the story, after receiving the first set of commandments, Moses smashes the stone tablets in a rage over the people's idolatry. The original physical document is destroyed. This necessitates a do-over. In Exodus 34, God tells Moses to cut 2 new stone tablets so that he can write the words that were on the first. The reader naturally expects God to dictate the same ethical list we heard in Exodus 20, but that is not what happens. What follows in Exodus 34 is a radically different list of commandments, often called the ritual decalogue. And yet, at the conclusion of this strange list, the text explicitly states that Moses wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. This is the only time in the Hebrew Bible that a specific list of laws is explicitly identified in the immediate narrative summary as the 10 Commandments. And it is not the list you learned in Sunday school. Let us examine this third list in detail as it flows through the text of Exodus 34. You will notice the tone is particular, agrarian, and deeply concerned with separation from Canaanite tribes. It begins not with, I am the Lord, but with a strict political warning to take heed and make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land, lest it become a snare. It is a command of geopolitical isolationism. This is immediately followed by a militant command to destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. It is not enough to abstain from idolatry. The Israelites must actively dismantle the pagan infrastructure. The text then reiterates the demand for exclusive worship, adding the specific theological descriptor that the Lord's name is jealous. The list continues with a very specific prohibition. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. This differs from the graven images of Exodus 20. A molten god is cast metal, a direct reference to the golden calf they had just made. This is reactive legislation. The text then shifts entirely to ritual observance, commanding the keeping of the feast of unleavened bread. In the ethical decalogue, there is no mention of feast days. Here, the calendar is central. Next comes the law of the firstborn, stating that all that open the matrix are gods and must be redeemed. This establishes the principle of divine ownership over life. The Sabbath command appears here as well, but it is phrased with a crucial addition. 6 days thou shalt work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. By specifying plowing and harvest, this version addresses the specific economic anxiety of a farming people, demanding radical trust in God even when the crops are at risk. The list then commands the observance of the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of Ingathering, structuring the entire year around the agricultural cycle. It includes a promise that when the men go up 3 times a year to appear before the Lord, no man shall desire their land, a divine security guarantee for their property. Finally, the list concludes with proper worship regulations. Do not offer the blood of sacrifice with leaven. Do not leave the Passover sacrifice until morning. Bring the first fruits to the house of the Lord, and the famous prohibition against seething a kid in its mother's milk. These are the words that the text identifies as the commandments written on the replacement tablets. Why do we have these differences? The predominant academic theory suggests these different lists stem from different sources, the Elohist, priestly, and Yahwist traditions that were woven together by later editors. In the narrative logic of the final text, the placement is theologically brilliant. The first covenant of Exodus 20 was high and ethical, but the people failed it immediately with the golden calf. They proved they were not ready for pure ethics. They needed structure. So the second covenant of Exodus 34, the one that actually survived in the ark, was the ritual decalogue. It provided the tangible, ritualistic guardrails needed to keep a wayward people from falling back into idolatry. It functioned as a remedial covenant, a strict regimen for a people who had shown they could not handle total freedom. The existence of these 3 lists, the ethical, the homiletic, and the ritual, warns us against idolatry of the text itself. It reminds us that Torah is not a monolith, but a conversation. It highlights the dual nature of religious life, which requires both the ethical absolutes of Exodus 20 and the community-binding rituals of Exodus 34. You cannot maintain the ethics of the community without the rituals that sustain the community's identity. The separatist nature of the ritual decalogue was the immune system of the Jewish people, ensuring they remained distinct enough to carry their ethical monotheism through history. The Bible gives us a stereo image of the will of God, showing us that covenant life is meant to be moral, ritualistic, and constantly reapplied. In the end, the 10 Commandments are not just a list of rules, but a story of a relationship that was resilient enough to survive even the breaking of the first tablets. Good evening. What if I told you that the list of rules you know as the 10 Commandments, the ones about murder, theft, and adultery, isn't actually the list the Bible gives that title to? It sounds impossible, but if you look closely at the Hebrew text, there are actually 3 different versions of the Decalogue, and they differ in fascinating ways. In fact, the only list explicitly named the 10 Commandments in the narrative of Exodus doesn't mention "thou shalt not kill" at all. Instead, it focuses on harvest festivals and a strange prohibition against boiling a baby goat in its mother's milk. In this lecture, we're going to shatter the classic Sunday school illusion, walk through Exodus and Deuteronomy line by line, and uncover the ancient political and religious drama that gave us 3 competing versions of the most famous laws in history. So, as we close the book on these 3 distinct lists, we are left not with a contradiction to be solved, but with a richness to be embraced. We see that the Ten Commandments are not merely a static artifact of the past, but a living testimony to a people who wrestled with God across centuries, adapting their covenant from the foot of Sinai to the banks of the Jordan and through the crisis of idolatry. This textual diversity invites us to move beyond a superficial reading and into a deeper, more robust engagement with the history of our faith. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden complexities of the Bible, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more curious minds like yours. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next investigation into the ancient world. Thank you for watching.